So first we'll be talking about the acquired diverticula, and then we'll be talking about some congenital diverticulum, and then we'll be talking about the colonic diverticula. So the acquired diverticula has already been described that they are most commonly, they are formed secondarily to the phenomena, which is basically the bacterial stasis and abnormal smooth muscle kind of regulation or smooth muscle vitality of the intestine. So that's not a proven thing. That's only a hypothesis, which is a kind of trying to explain the pathophysiology behind the development of these diverticula. If we talk about the site, duodenum, jejunum, ileum, in case of the small intestine, these are the sites where the acquired diverticula are formed. Now, if we talk about the clinical manifestation, how actually the patient is going to present to you. So the first and the foremost important thing here to know is that most of the time, these diverticula are asymptomatic. That means the patient will not feel any symptom, and if the patient is being opened up or exploratory laparotomy is being done for any other cause, maybe a trauma or maybe some kind of other abnormalities, mesenteric ischemia or some kind of other abnormalities, may be possible that you are encountered with incidental finding of the diverticulum. So they're asymptomatic and they are incidental findings in almost 70% of the cases. Or maybe possible a patient was underwent endoscopy, and as a result of it, maybe he was planned for ERCP, and in endoscopic visualization the diverticulum was formed. But if the diverticulum is the incidental finding and patient is asymptomatic and there is the base of the diverticulum is broad and there is less chances of formation of stricture or strangulation or perforation or diverticulitis, then they can be left as it is, and there's no much of the need for to go for a surgical management or you do the diverticulectomy. Now, the patient can actually have multiple other manifestations as well. Like if you talk about the patient can present to you with malabsorption syndromes, or there can be bacterial stasis in the diverticulum, and the patient can present to you with the diverticulitis. But sometimes the patient can present to you with acute abdomen. That means that there can be intestinal obstruction. May be possible that there is the intestinal band around the neck of the diverticulum, and because of that is strangulated. The part of the gut is being strangulated, and the patient actually present to you with the signs and symptoms of intestinal obstruction. The other thing that the patient can present to you is maybe possible there's a perforation, and if you talk about the jejunal diverticula, so most of the time, like the presentation may be just like the perforated peptic ulcer or perforated duodenal ulcer. And when you try to, and if there is not much of the time available for CT scan, then the patient is immediately taken to the OR, and may be possible that you were actually opening up the patient for perforated duodenal ulcer or peptic ulcer, and there you go, you find a diverticulum, and that is basically that is perforated. And the perforated diverticulum can actually cause the peritonitis, which can be generalized peritonitis or localized peritonitis. So all the signs and symptoms of the acute abdomen, like intestinal obstruction, like perforation, like GI bleeding, because sometimes it's possible that the diverticulum is bleeding, and the patient can have dark color stools or melena, or he may present to you with hematomasses if the diverticulum is somewhere closer in the proximal duodenum. But if the diverticulum is in the jejunum or ileum, the patient can actually actually present to you with a fresh color bleed, or most of the time dark color bleed, which is called as the melena. So, and the signs of intestinal obstruction, maybe the patient can present to you with absolute constipation, vomiting, and severe abdominal pain. And when you try to examine such patient, the abdomen is extremely tender, and the signs of the peritonitis, generalized tenderness, and generalized peritonitis, guarding rigidity, and absence of the bowel sounds can be present in case of such patients. So if you're trying to suspect a case of diverticulum, maybe you don't know exactly where the location is, and you try to examine such patient, and there are signs of localized or generalized peritonitis, or still the patient has no signs of tenderness or peritonitis, and still you're confused, but you're suspecting a diverticulum, then there are some imaging modalities which can be very, very helpful. Usually the contrast imaging, like barium, enema, and barium swallow through, these can be very helpful for the investigation. And then if you're suspecting perforation, maybe the x-rays, abdominal x-rays, the rectal and supine, AP and the lateral views, and the chest x-ray, they can be helpful in diagnosing the perforation. But for if the diverticulum is not perforated, or there are no signs of peritonitis, but you are suspecting, then CT, computer tomography with the contrast, is the imaging modality, or imaging with technetium-99 scan. They can be very helpful. But if you could see here in the diagram that this is actually the jejunal diverticula. So what you're actually going to look in the imaging. So if there is a free fluid, you can see around the jejunal loop there is presence of free fluid, and if you could see here at the top, there is air fluid level. So you can get this air fluid if there's a perforation of the if there is a perforation of the wall, or you can say jejunum, duodenum, anywhere where the diverticulum is present. So what you are going to look for, you're going to look for air fluid levels in the abdominal x-rays, and the contrast imaging, and the CT imaging. And you can see here in this diagram that this is actually the upper part is the ear, the blackish, which is shown by the arrow. The lower part is basically the fluid. So there are air fluid levels within the jejunum diverticulum. That means that the diverticulum is perforated, and there can be free fluid, because whenever there is a perforation, or perforation is a kind of a hole, so whatever the contents would be there would be spillage into the abdominal cavity. So free fluid will be present in the abdominal cavity in case of the perforated jejunal or duodenum diverticulum. So there is another diagram you can see here on the top. This is the white arrow, which is showing to the presence of this also a jejunal diverticulum. Okay, some more pictures, and this is actually you can see the whole loop of the jejunum, and there is a thickened loop of the jejunum is present. That means that's actually showing to the process of the inflammatory changes. Then you can see the blackish patches here. This is the gas in the diverticulum, and this is actually the free fluid which is present. So this is the free fluid in the abdominal peritoneal cavity, and this is actually the part of the duodenum, the thickened loop of the jejunum. And then you can see the multiple air fluid levels or gas in the diverticulum, which is actually showing the perforation. Okay, so this is an other imaging, axial scan, and you can see here, this is the jejunal loop which is present, and you can see multiple diverticula. There's multiple arrows which are showing the diverticulosis. So maybe possible that there is one diverticulum present, or maybe possible there are multiple diverticula present. The presence of multiple diverticula, that is a condition called as diverticulosis. So you can see here one is present here, then you can see this arrow, and there are multiple arrows which are showing the presence of the diverticulum. So remember, a single diverticulum or the presence of multiple diverticula, which is a condition called as diverticulosis, can be found and easily picked up by the CT scan. And if there's diverticulitis, or if there's a perforation or intestinal obstruction, these are all the findings which can be picked up by a computed tomographic scan, and axial and coronal images can be very helpful in judging the location. Now comes the management part of the diverticulitis. So it depends. We already talked about the presentations. We talked about like the patient can be asymptomatic, or he can present to you with diverticulitis, or he can present to you with intestinal obstruction, hemorrhage, or basically mesenteric ischemia, or the patient can present to you with the perforation and the signs of the peritonitis. So if the patient is presenting to you with the diverticulitis, what is actually your algorithm which is to be followed? So there can be two conditions: either the diverticulum is complicated or it's non-complicated. So if there is a diverticulitis and it's a non-complicated, then you have to go for a medical treatment in diffuse jejunal diverticulitis. So you have already done the imaging. You know that if there's a presence of single diverticulum or there are multiple diverticula. So in case of the extensive diverticulosis or diffuse jejunal diverticulosis, medical treatment is the option we have available for the non-complicated cases. And if you have treated the non-complicated diverticulitis on medical treatment or medical therapy, and then there's a recurrence, then you have to go for a surgery. So the surgery becomes the first line treatment for non-complicated cases when there is recurrence of the jejunal diverticulitis. In non-complicated cases, another option is that you go for surgery as a first line treatment. So you have both options. Either you give a medical treatment and wait for, especially for the diffuse diverticulosis. But if it's a diverticulitis and it's not diffuse and it's not involving an extensive portion of the intestine, then you have to go for the surgical strategy first. In complicated cases, there can be peridiverticular abscess, there can be perforation, there can be bleeding. So if there's a peridiverticular abscess or there's a collection less than 5 centimeter, then you have to go for antibiotics and you have to go for the percutaneous drainage. And if the combination of the antibiotics with the percutaneous drainage goes into failure, then you have to go for surgery. Surgery is a diverticulectomy, of course, and we'll be discussing in the next section. If the peridiverticular abscess or collection is greater than 5 centimeter, then you have to go for surgery. If the abscess is less than 5, you give antibiotics, you give a percutaneous, you go for percutaneous drainage, and then if there is a failure to these strategies, then you go for the surgery. But if there's a peridiverticular abscess or collection and that's greater than 5 centimeter, then you have to go for surgery. And if there is a presence of generalized peritonitis and either the patient is in septic shock, then resuscitate, okay? The patient can be in shock, and first you have to manage the shock of the patient, go for emergency resuscitation, and if the patient is widely stable and hemodynamically stable, then you can go for emergency surgery, and you go for limited intestinal resection, or you do the enterostomy. But most of the time it depends upon the spillage and the contamination. If there's a lot of contamination and there's a lot of pus which was being drained, then it's not safe to go for a primary anastomosis. You make a stoma, you go for enterostomy, whatever you're doing. It's a jejunal or ileal, depends upon the location of the diverticulum. And if there's a no septic shock and there's a diffuse jejunal diverticulosis, then you go for limited intestinal resection. The most viable part of the gut is being preserved, and you can go for a primary repair in case of non-septic area, or you can wait and you can do the enterostomy. Or if there's a one single diverticulum or few jejunal diverticula, then again you go for the intestinal resection and diverticulectomy and go for a primary anastomosis if there is a limited resection of the bowel is recommended. So remember this algorithm, that how you are going to treat the case of a jejunal diverticulitis. Okay, so if there is no septic shock and there is proximal diverticulitis, and the total length of that proximal diverticulitis is less than 5 centimeter from the duodenojejunal flexure, then there are three options. Either you go for diverticulectomy, you do the perforation suturing, just suture the perforation, or you bury the perforated diverticulum. So remember this algorithm, how you are going to manage a case of a jejunal diverticulitis. It depends if the case is non-complicated or complicated. In a non-complicated, especially in case of diffuse diverticulosis, you wait, you give the antibiotic treatment, and you wait. You try to treat your patient with a medical treatment. But if there's a recurrence or there's a failure, then you go for the surgery. Or either you can, if there's a limited portion of the intestine is involved, and or there is a single diverticulum, then you can go for the surgery. In a case of the complicated diverticulitis, either if the abscess or the collection is less than 5, go for antibiotics or percutaneous drainage. If there's a failure, then go for surgery. And if the collection or the abscess is greater than 5, go for the surgery. And in case of the generalized peritonitis, you have to rule out if the patient is a septic shock or not. So if the patient is in septic shock, you have to resuscitate first and build up your patient, then go for emergency surgery and do the intestinal resection and do the enterostomy. Okay, so in case of there is no septic shock and there's a diffuse jejunal diverticulosis, again, you go for the resection and you can go for a primary repair. But if there's a one single jejunum or few of the jejunal diverticula are present, then you can go for intestinal resection, including double enterostomy. And if there's a possibility that there's a proximal diverticulitis and the distance, or you can say from the duodenojejunal flexure is less than 50 centimeter, then you have three options. Either you do the suture the perforation, you do the diverticulectomy, or you have to bury the perforated diverticulum. That's how you are going to manage a case of jejunal diverticulitis.